What's up, Midnight Strikers? Welcome back to your weekly verses. I am your host, Midnight Strike 3625, and as always, this is a series where we take two artists, two video games, two of pretty much anything having to do with music and gaming, pit them against each other to see which one you guys like the best. Now, as always, in similar versus fashion, I will be giving my opinion, and then letting you guys decide in the comment section below, whilst giving a little bit of history. Now, there's not a lot of history for this one, as today we are going to be comparing two heavy metal vocalists prominent in their own retrospect, James Labrie and Rob Halford. Now, these two singers are pretty much neck and neck when it comes to sheer technicality and sheer technique, but they are very similar when it comes to their overall singing ability. So, when it comes to genre, however, in their respective field, they are completely different. One is progressive metal, one is heavy metal, and they come from the bands Dream Theater and Judas Priest, respectively. So, basically, when it gets down to it, Judas Priest is the older band, and Rob Halford probably had the longest prime, if you will, and James Labrie's voice has been slowly, I wouldn't necessarily say declining, but it's been getting a little bit more mature over the years, but culminating into what I like to call maturation. Illumination Theory, one of my favorite Dream Theater songs, pretty much sums up what James Labrie sounds like today, as well as, of course, The Enemy Inside, another one of my favorite modern-day Dream Theater songs. So, Rob Halford, however, is more or less a mixed bag. He can't really sing as high as he once did, but back in his prime, oh my god, I would probably rate him as a cross between Mark Slaughter and Axl Rose. He had the grit down, but he could definitely sing the high notes as high, if not higher, than Axl Rose and, of course, Mark Slaughter, whilst having that kind of raspy tone that Mark Slaughter actually mastered in his older works. Of course, Slaughter hasn't released anything since 1999, but that's beside the point. Halford, in his time away from Judas Priest, in between, I believe it was the years 1993 to somewhere in the mid-2000s. I'm sorry, I'm not really that familiar with Judas Priest's like back catalog and history. Wasn't really too big of a Judas Priest fan up until just recently when I listened to Painkiller. The entire album is just amazing. So that aside, of course, Judas Priest has a very fine vocalist. Didn't really care much for the other guy, but that is a different story, different video. As far as James Labrie's concerned, though, they're pretty much neck and neck in terms of ability, I think. I mean, I can't really decide between the two, but when it comes down to the technique and who had the longer prime, I would probably say Rob Halford has the edge. But when it comes to combining the vocal abilities and adding a little bit of variation to whatever the song requires, I would say that Dream Theater masters that pretty well. But then again, that's a band effort versus a singer effort. And to remind everyone, Rob Halford has been a part of a lot of different solo projects, including Fight and his own band Halford. I actually got the idea of doing this comparison by listening to the album War of Words by Fight, requested by Mike Stout. So basically, that's probably going to be my next video, either tomorrow or the next day, but I want to get that one out of the way, done and out of the way, before the end of November. So basically, getting into it, Dream Theater formed in, I believe, 88 or 89, and they didn't originally have the singer James Labrie. They had, I think it was like Charlie Dominici or something like that. I don't remember how to pronounce his last name, but they didn't have him for very long, because when Images and Words came around, that's basically when James Labrie pretty much hit the peak of his popularity. That's pretty much as how popular he would be. I would probably compare him to the singer of Rush. Even though I'm not too big of a Rush fan, he definitely sounds like the singer of Rush, and the vocalist for Rush is very talented. I just not really too fond of the band themselves, but that's a different video, different day, as I said before. So when it comes down to it, I would probably, it's really tough, but in terms of technique, I would probably give it to James Labrie, because he can variate his voice a little bit more so, and he still sounds very mature and just very good overall today, and his voice has gradually matured and taken on a new form. But Rob Halford, however, he still sounds very much the same, but he can't hit the high notes. It's kind of like Bruce Dickinson, where he still has the same tone or the same overall sound, but when he tries to go for those high notes, it doesn't exactly go very well. He still does have a ton of talent, one of my favorite vocalists of all time, but sometimes the tone he uses doesn't really fit the song very well. So that's just me, though. That's my opinion. These two are both legendary singers in their own right, and I do agree about that. So what's your guys' take on it? Who do you think is better, James Labrie or Rob Halford? In terms of their prime, I would probably go with Rob Halford. Like I said, give the edge to him. But when it comes to overall technique and sheer variation, I'd probably give it to James Labrie, because I've seen him take on so many different forms of tone and just technique that it's not even funny. I've also seen, of course, Rob Halford take on different tones, because, I mean, you compare Painkiller to You Got Another Thing Coming and Living After Midnight, they sound like completely different vocalists. So, I mean, it takes talent for both of these guys to do that, but I'd have to give the edge on variation to James Labrie. So it's pretty much neck and neck when it comes down to it. Overall, I can't really decide, but that's for you guys. I want to see if you guys can decide and what you think is better. So let me know in the comment section down below. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope it's going well. This is Midnight Strike 3625. Keep calm and rock on.